Number 3, guilt tripping. Manipulators use our guilt feelings as a weapon against us. They actually try to make us responsible for their own mistakes or for their own manipulative behaviors, making us feel guilty and easier to control. And they use reversing as a tactic where narcissists flip situations or conversations to make themselves appear as the victim or to deflect blame onto the actual victim. Number 4, gaslighting. By distorting reality or even denying the facts or even ridiculing us when we question or when we do not blindly obey what they propose, manipulators try to confuse us and make us doubt our own perceptions and our own memories. And it is noteworthy that they do not engage with facts, but rather try to play on our emotions. Number 5, isolation. They isolate us from friends, from family, or from our support network, making us more dependent on them or their information channel as the sole source of information, and thus make us less resilient to their manipulation. Number 6, as we have seen in history, manipulators also try to exclude us from the rest or turn our fellow human beings against us when we do not blindly obey, all supposedly for our own well-being. Number 7, love bombing. So excessive attention and love are given as a reward for obedience, making us unconsciously feel supported and obligated to please them and to accept their control over us. Number 8, instilling fear. Manipulators use continuous threats on a small or on a large scale, or fear, as a means to maintain control over us. They literally threaten punishment or negative consequences if we do not do what only they propose. Number 9, the verbal abuse, the insults, the threats, the humiliations are used to suppress us and to force us into obedience. Number 10, divide and conquer. By sowing division and pitting groups against each other, manipulators more easily increase their control over smaller groups by exploiting chaos to then try to gain control over all weakened smaller groups altogether. And as a bonus, the hidden agendas. They actually conceal their true motives and their true intentions behind a beautiful facade of good intentions that you cannot object to. And manipulators do this with kindness, with caring, with eloquence and tidiness in the so-called interest of the greater good or the common good, deceiving our beautiful human sense of solidarity and easily manipulating it. Do you recognize one or more of these very cunning textbook manipulation techniques? That is great news, because when you recognize them, you are already much more resilient against being manipulated. Secondly, we need to liberate ourselves from our fear, from our pain, and from our traumas that make us vulnerable to manipulation. Because when we are reconnected to our inner strength, to our independent fulfillment, and to our intuition, manipulators have no power over us anymore. Now, what is narcissism actually? Now, narcissism is often a symptom of a deep trauma, causing them to disconnect from their core and soul because situations were too painful in their youth, resulting in uncertainty and loss of control over themselves. But on the other hand, being susceptible to narcissism is often also a symptom of a deep trauma within ourselves. Now, people with narcissistic tendencies use power and manipulation to control others actually as a means of compensation for their own loss of connection and power over their deeply wounded core. And we ourselves unconsciously allow ourselves to be manipulated by narcissists as a means of compensation to avoid taking responsibility for ourselves, because that would confront us with our deep trauma that we do not want to feel either. But no worries, getting rid of our deep traumas, which makes us either susceptible to narcissism or victims of narcissism, is actually much easier than we are programmed to believe is true. Watch my 4 videos here if you want to know how we can indeed cleanse our own traumas without having to feel or relive them over and over again. And as you may have noticed, often the people with narcissistic manipulative behaviors occupy the highest possible positions and to have as much power over the people under them as possible. The higher the urge for manipulative control over others, the more it can be a symptom of a deep trauma and their dissociation from their own soul, their core and self-love, and thus the more they are dissociated from empathy for others as well. And at the same time, the more susceptible we are to narcissistic manipulation, the more it can indicate that same trauma within ourselves. So we prefer to be distracted from our own trauma by the manipulation rather than to be confronted with ourselves and with our own underlying trauma. The dissociation within a narcissist can take such a large form that they actually start to believe they have ultimate decision-making power over others' lives, where they sometimes even believe that ill intentions towards others would be good for the planet. The antidote to both manipulation and being manipulated is actually both deep healing of our own traumas. Because when we are reconnected with our own heart, with our soul, with our love, every need for manipulation or control over others disappears. And when we are fully and especially independently connected to our heart, to our soul, to our love again, every susceptibility to manipulation also disappears. Do you know someone who is actually a victim of narcissistic abuse? Or do you see manipulation at higher societal levels? So let's not fight against manipulation, but let's address the root cause or causes of why we are susceptible to manipulation and protect each other by spreading awareness. Share this video and help others protect themselves against manipulation and against narcissistic abuse. Together, we can form a powerful antidote to manipulation and to abuse by liberating ourselves from our own traumas and thus not reacting or contributing to narcissism or narcissistic abuse in any way anymore. Thank you for watching and don't forget to subscribe if this video resonates with you. And thanks again for sharing, because together we can sure make a difference.